You find yourself stepping into a new dimension, a dimension of sight and sound so strange and peculiar that can only be described as the Hypnosis Zone.
You're listening to the Hypnosis Zone podcast, Hypno 101. This is a purely auditory experience. The goal here is to teach you about hypnosis. I invite you to spend the next 30 minutes or so listening to this podcast in full so you receive all the information that it has inside it. My goal here is to unload that information upon you in such a way that you can go away and form an opinion of it on your own. I will, however, be very objective in telling you the absolute facts about hypnosis, because we don't want to cheapen the reality that you are a smart, thinking, capable individual. And that is the perfect place to begin today. So let's talk Hypnosis 101.
First of all, dear listener, hypnosis is everywhere. It is in the marketing when you walk to work. It is on the billboards. It is on the ads you see on TV. It is everywhere and anywhere that you can possibly and impossibly imagine. What I want to teach you in this podcast is the absolute truth about hypnosis. No bullshit, no lies, no political agenda, none of that stuff. A no nonsense look at hypnosis, what it is, what it isn't, so that you understand and can do something with that information in your daily life. For starters, let's clarify what hypnosis is. Hypnosis is a state of mind that the brain enters during a hypnotic experience. The goal of hypnosis, the goal of any hypnotic experience, is to bring the subject into a state of trance, to suggest a variety of different things to the subject. Then they wake up and they act out those things. In the past, this has been used in comedy. It's been used in more serious things like to help people stop smoking. It's been used for a variety of different aspects of day-to-day living, but it's still ultimately a taboo subject. And the goal here is to break that taboo wall down once and for all, because as soon as we can talk about this with our families, as soon as we can talk about this with, our children, our, husbands or wives or whatever, the better. Because then we can start preparing ourselves for facing these kinds of things and actually dealing with them rather, in a way that is of benefit to the average person. We're in a state of crisis at the moment. The entire world has never been more alert of itself than here and now. We've essentially been broken from a state of hypnosis. We used to go about our monotony, the monotony of our daily life, not questioning anything, not questioning any ideal that came our way. And I invite you to think about those things, to question the ideas that are presented to you. Because I know you're a thinking person, and I know that you are smarter and more capable than your government believes you are. The goal here isn't to muddy hypnosis and trick you into thinking it's something that it isn't. However, one thing that I will say is, I'm incapable of telling anyone that what they experienced under hypnosis isn't what they experience. I can't do that. The reason I can't do that is because, what you've experienced, if you have experienced hypnosis at all, what you experienced is valid. And that's an important thing I want you to understand, The various thoughts and opinions on hypnosis are valid. Some of them contradict each other, but nevertheless, they are still valid, through a certain perspective. But hopefully, through educating you on the variety of techniques that the media uses, you can bring yourself into a state of mental preparedness. Now, some may refer to that as, pre-hypnotic suggestion. But, we're just going to call it what it is and say that it's not pre-hypnotic at all. It's just a suggestion. Let's start there, actually. Let's start with suggestions. So, hypnosis was invented by a guy by the name of Franz Mesmer, and his focus was more on mesmerizing a person. The modern elements of which we know about hypnosis, the deeper complexities of it, the ways it was used to study the mind and aid people studying anthropology and all that kind of thing, that came later. Initially, it was just about mesmerizing someone, which had not been a thing, or if it was, it was very taboo until Franz Mesmer made it popular. But even then, once he did make it popular, it was still a taboo. And it's still being a taboo to this day. And what's interesting about that, about it being a taboo subject, is that leads us into a very interesting situation in which we can break down that barrier and make it more accessible, make it easier to talk about. Because ultimately, hypnosis is what you make it. It can be thrilling, it can be sexual, it can be funny, it can be scary, it can be any matter of different feelings that you want it to be. It all starts with you, though. You know, and studies have been done through the CIA, the FBI, you know, all the various secret organizations in the world have no doubt looked into the effects of hypnosis on the brain. They looked into studies of hypnosis and the use of drugs and various things like that as a means of working out, you know, the inner workings of the brain. This is how the concept of the subconscious was even formed. You know, before the likes of Franz Mesmer and many other hypnotists to follow, people didn't believe that much in a subconscious. I mean, if they did, they certainly didn't have a name for it. You know, then came, you know, Freud and numerous others who delved into different parts of the human psyche and, you know, into sexual inhibition and all that kind of thing. All of that all came later, and it led still to the subject being a taboo. But you know what I want to really stress as sort of an intro to hypnosis is that hypnosis doesn't have to be scary or any of those things. It doesn't have to be terrifying. It can be, you know, whatever you want it to be. You know, it can be whatever you want it to be. And if you so choose to have it be funny, then it can be funny. If you choose to have it be, you know, overtly sexual, it can be. It can be very sexual and very arousing. But, you know, it didn't start out that way. It started out as a means of understanding the subconscious. Now I speak about MK Ultra and all that kind of thing, but one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which is a very interesting thing to touch on, is the concept of a game named Polybius. Now, it's unknown as to whether a game like this was real. It existed. There is a PS4 game named Polybius, but I doubt it's the actual thing. It's not. But the interesting thing about the mythos of Polybius is that it sort of is a statement about how the government did actual research into how the brain responds to things. And that's why I think actually, if Polybius did exist, you know, it had to have had something to do with MK. You know, and maybe they tried to see if, you know, there were psychological effects that could be tested on people you know, while they are subjected to various imagery and words and all that kind of thing, you know, is there some way that that can affect the brain? And, if that is possible, then I think there is a very real possibility that if a game doesn't exist like Polybius yet, it may one day be possible. In fact, I've actually looked into a number of ARGs involving, you know, video games that actually link to real events, freaking literal inductions into cults embedded within video games. So Polybius may not exist, but games like it do that have suggestions that lull you into a sense of believing specific ideals by enforcing certain beliefs upon you. You know, so that's really the whole realm of suggestion and how suggestion can be harnessed at its most dangerous form is it can be used in games. It can be used in stuff on TV. And I'm telling you this because I I I don't assume you're stupid, you know. I know you're smart. I know you're free thinking, capable individuals. But I say this to you because as soon as you're aware of it, you can do something about it. Now, another technique that is used besides the power of suggestion is the concept, the very powerful concept of neural patterning or neural linguistic programming. Neural linguistic programming is patterning of language that enters the brain in a very specific way. This then influences you subconsciously or consciously to see things a certain way, believe certain things, take certain things at face value, not believe in certain things. You know, going back to the power of suggestion for a bit, it can make you, you know, believe certain things that aren't true because, it's kind of a mind hack in a weird way. I personally, and this is my opinion, this is not a fact, I consider it a mind hack, if you will. Because essentially that's what it is. It's hacking the brain to think a specific way, and respond a specific way. And that actually brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about Hypnosis 101 wise, and that is triggers. And I'm not talking feminism and freaking religion and all that kind of thing. No, I'm talking actual hypnotic triggers. One that's been going around lately has been the new normal. You hear so many people in the news media, in the mainstream media, talking about the new normal. Like, I want to be very clear here. Trigger words, or trigger phrases even, are not a series of random words said together like in freaking Captain America Civil War with Bucky. Trigger words are words that can be slipped into sentences. sometimes you don't even know that they're there, that invoke a physical reaction within those who hear it. I invite you, please, take a look at the study that Darren Brown has done into this kind of stuff, because it is fascinating. Fascinates me to no end. Because he goes into complete detail. He doesn't, try and shortcut it. He doesn't try and make it out to be something that it isn't. He shows you the the reality, which is that triggers are an actual thing, and you can use phrases to put someone into a certain state where, in extreme cases, they can murder someone and assume the position of a sleeper agent. You know, it's a really interesting thing to think about, but that is a reality that we have to live with. But, as much as I joke about, words like feminism being a trigger word and all that kind of thing, actually, they kind of are hypnotic triggers as well. The news media is using these words to invoke a certain political bias upon you. They're using certain phrases and so on and so forth to make you feel bad for certain people, sympathetic even, or empathize, or have you empathize with certain people, and then using other language, neuro-linguistic language, to have you believe someone is the enemy. One example of this, which I will have in the description below, you can go take a look at this, is North Korea in response to recent events. Western media wants you to believe that North Korea is bad. And yes, theoretically, they are a dictatorship. They'll freaking tell you this all the damn time in the mainstream. Dictatorship, bad. And people believe it. But you actually look at what news they're being fed, and they're actually being fed accurate facts on the scenario. They reported a better understanding of the entire situation than I think anyone in the world has. And these are the guys that are the perceived bad guys, according to the mainstream. The World Health Organization is another one who's using various buzzwords to brainwash you into thinking certain things about, you know, about the current events going on, into thinking certain things about the people in and around you, in your home and around you in your society. They're pushing certain ideals that we have to be very aware of, because that suggestion, if it you know if it makes its way deep enough, it can have a profound effect on our actions, and they can and will use it to control how you behave. But it doesn't have to be like that. You can be aware of those trigger words. You can be aware of those buzzwords. You can be aware of those things. You've just got to make sure that you don't use them in a way that you instill fear and you, you know, cause problems, because, words are the ultimate power. Knowledge is the ultimate power. Not money, not, politics, not any of that. Knowledge. And if you have knowledge, there's really no telling what you can do and what you can be capable of. You know, the goal of this entire podcast, for those of you listening at home, is to sort of deprogram you. Because, as a society, we were asleep, but now we're awake. Now we know, that because our cars aren't filling the streets, the skies are as clear as they've ever been. Animals are returning to places that they haven't been in ages because it's now healthy for them to do so. You know? And all of that is because, you know, we made actions that foolishly led us to this point. But now that we're at home, and we can talk about these things, these ideas with our family, our friends, we can do something about it. We can collectively do something about it. And I want you to talk about, trigger words and all that kind of thing. I want you to talk about brainwashing. I want you to talk about programming and deprogramming and all kinds of that stuff, because these are the terms you should familiarize yourself with. Because if you learn to recognize neurolinguistic programming, it could save you and your family's life from having, a panic attack or a number of different stuff, you know? And that's the unfortunate side effect of a lot of this, is that they use this hypnotic language in their marketing and their media without complete understanding as to the dangers of it. But anyway, I can't wait to talk to you more about hypnosis. In the next podcast episode, we might go more into brainwashing and all that kind of thing. I really just wanted to, introduce you to what hypnosis is. So to break down that misconception that it's a bad thing. It totally isn't. It totally depends on the hypnotist. And ultimately, if there's anything you take away from this, it's that be careful who you lend your mind to. Because your thoughts matter. And you are, you are justified to believe what you want. And you are justified to think for yourself. And they shouldn't be, intercepting your thoughts and making you think things that they want you to think. you should be thinking for yourself.
Anyway, I'm Naomi, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe for more.